This changes everything for the Boston Bruins as we have another brutal injury update on this defense. And this time, one of the better players on the Boston Bruins right now, Hampus Lindholm. I'm going to be talking about what came out today just moments ago and what moves the Bruins have made already and what more is going to come from this here in this video. Now, before we get into all of this news here, we know so 75% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot to get all of your Boston Bruins news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join me here on the channel. We're covering everything Boston Bruins, but we need to get into this topic. This is unfortunately one that I did not want to have to make. After the injury update from Hampus Lindholm, he is now labeled out from week to week, according to Jim Montgomery, and this was quite honestly the worst thing that we expected. This is the last thing that we wanted to hear, as you see from Jim McBride right here on this tweet. The Bruins defenseman Hampus Lindholm will be out weeks, according to head coach Jim Montgomery. And Hampus Lindholm went down last game, and ultimately we saw that he did not return, and we were hoping for the best, and obviously that was not the case. We didn't get that lucky, as one of the best defensemen that we've had this season, and probably the best at this point so far in Hampus Lindholm, is going to be out for quite some time now, is what we're looking at. And as I mentioned, not what we ideally wanted to see, but we have to move on from this. You know, the Bruins are playing well, 4-1-1 in their last 6 games, and we can't let one injury such as this really kind of make the Bruins go down a deep path, which they've been so far this season. And although this is not ideal, as I mentioned, we do have some more moves that have been made and more moves that will come from this that, like I said, I will be talking about here in this video. And as we move on to this one, another tweet here from Michael Sullivan. The defensive core without Hampus Lindholm and Andrew Peeke. We also cannot forget him, who is also out week to week. Another top defenseman for the Bruins who had been playing very solid. And as I mentioned in that video, we're not hearing about him, which in this case for the Bruins this season is something that you're probably happy with, not hearing about a guy. But seeing Zadorov and McAvoy on the first pairing, McAvoy obviously being the huge guy in this most recent game with David Pastrnak to win against St. Louis. Lowry and Carlo moving up to the second line. Lowry, that is, normally playing on the third line. And Jordan Oesterle and Parker Wotherspoon on the third line. And an extra, we have Ian Mitchell, Billy Sweezy, and Michael Sullivan jokes convince McQuaid to play. At this point, it might seem like we have to, because the Bruins defense is getting very shallow on the depth. We've had depth before, as in Jordan Oesterle, Parker Wotherspoon. Now, those two guys are on the active roster, playing for some of the top defensemen the Bruins have been kind of banking on this season that are now out week to week. And of course, I do want to pull up the official announcement here just to ensure that we do see it. Recalled from Providence, Jordan Oesterle coming out earlier today from the Boston Bruins official Twitter account. So kind of gives us some insight on what the plan is going to be going forward. And it does suck to have this update now, of course, going from a very good few set of games. Tough loss, but some good games going on the past few, and some tough games going forward that we wanted to see guys like Hampus Lindholm step up, guys like Charlie McAvoy continue to play the way they have. And now we're not going to see that. Now we're going to see a big shift in the defensive pairings, which is a big hit as to what we've seen in the offense as well this season with the changes that Jim Montgomery has had to make that have ultimately worked out in some occasions, but also have not in many, many others. And we hope that we haven't needed to see this on the defense, and now it is happening. But it seems like the defense has been a bit more solid. We've been kind of rotating the lines, and we've never seen a major incident so far on the defensive side of things, other than a few penalties that were not necessarily great ones to go on, but some ones that we're going to get better, and we've seen get better over the past few games. And as we move on to another one here, there are more options that we can kind of look at and kind of break down and see going into this. And we're looking at the AHL defenseman right here now, and Jordan Oesterle being the one at top there in points, 8 points in 9 games, which is actually pretty good now on the NHL roster. But as we kind of look at the rest, we're left here with Ian Mitchell, Billy Sweezy being the really only two that are possible to be called up. And I've mentioned Jackson Edward, Drew Bavaro, some of those guys that have been in discussions lately, not so much to be called up, but players who you're going to want to keep an eye on over the next season or two, but I don't think those guys are going to be ready to get called up to the NHL. So leaving it to their hands, leaving it into the hands of some rookies is not going to be the most ideal situation for the Boston Bruins, and Providence is also going to be in a bit of a tough situation with their best defenseman at the moment being sent up to the NHL, and having Parker Wotherspoon play every day as well. We're going to be in a very tight situation if any more injuries do occur, and we know that the cap space is quite limited on the Bruins right now, and it being around $2 million, 2.1, we do have a bit of room to make a signing or go on a waiver claim if need be, if the Bruins defense needs an extra hand going forward. And looking at what we have, Hampus Lindholm's contract is also $6.5 million, and that kind of leaves us in a bit of a spot where we may see some LTIR. Now, week to week or out weeks, we don't know how many that is. That could be 3 weeks, that could be 6, hopefully the shorter the better, but if you're going to miss 10 games or 24 days, you could be placed on LTIR. And having Hampus Lindholm's $6.5 million contract go to the LTIR could be a big benefit for the Bruins. Now, you're not going to go out and acquire somebody who's making $5-6 million in kind of replacement, knowing that Hampus Lindholm will be back eventually, but it does give the Bruins a bit more breathing room to be able to go out here, get another guy who is making $1 to $2 million, can certainly help out the team, and someone that is kind of looking for a new home. Now, there are many players around the NHL that could be classified as this. There's nobody really actively as a free agent that the Bruins might not or might want to go out and get, but the Bruins, I think, are going to be doing a lot of exploring over the next few days, and especially the next few weeks, as we kind of do progress further and further, and maybe see a few banged-up players potentially have to stick in this lineup due to the stuff that we've seen in the Bruins lineup. And we don't know right now if the Bruins are going to choose to call up anybody, whether that is, any of the defensemen I just mentioned, Billy Sweezy, any of those guys, but if we do, that'll have a big significant issue for the Providence Bruins, so I'm sure the Bruins don't want to do this, and obviously the Boston Bruins are the main focus here, but having these guys come up would be a bit of a situation where the Bruins don't want to teeter too much on the edge of having some players on the cap space they don't need. So it seems like the Bruins are going to kind of just stick with what they have now. Of course, Jordan Oesterle being called up is leaving them with that full 6 defense with no extra. And going forward, it seems like that's what they're going to try and do. But looking as well, as I mentioned, $2 million in cap space, projected 2.4 right now, and you can get certainly a second line, borderline second, third line defensive player for this price with ease. And whether the Bruins are going to choose to do that or not is going to be really depending on, I think, how we see the next few games play out and whether or not this defense can really hold the workload. Because looking at what I'm going to go back to now, the tweet from Michael Sullivan, this defensive pairing is definitely taking a big hit since the injuries to Andrew Peeke and Hampus Lindholm, and both are going to be out a few weeks. As you see, Ian Mitchell, Billy Sweezy, the only two that really, I think, are viable options from the Providence Bruins to be able to at least compete at a competitive level in the NHL against a bunch of good teams that they're going to be playing in the coming weeks. So Zadorov, McAvoy, Lohrei, and Carlo, I think we're going to see a big boost in play time for those guys, a big boost in energy, and hopefully we do see Jordan Oesterle and Parker Wotherspoon really be able to compete at this level. We know Parker Wotherspoon can, as being the 7th defenseman for majority of last year, him and Mason Lohrei, and Jordan Oesterle being a borderline NHL player who just didn't fit into a lineup. So we have a lot to think about over the next few games. I think tomorrow's game against the Stars is going to be a tough one to kind of watch and sit down on the defensive side of things, but hopefully it all does play out well. Hopefully we do see a big game, competitive game from the defense, and I think it's going to be a real telltale sign of what the Bruins are going to plan on do with their defense. So let me know what you think about this. What do you think about the defensive plan, as well as the injuries, obviously, to Hampus Lindholm and Andrew Peeke, and how that's going to affect the Bruins going forward? But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy it, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.